So we're here today to talk about redefining hospitality and building a brighter future. So we've got some great people. I'm just going to get you each to introduce yourself. So we're starting here with Andy, who very kindly stepped in for Sally Beck, who was due to be here but couldn't. So we've got a fabulous replacement in Andy.
So I'm Andy Fletcher. I'm the Director of People and Culture at the Athenaeum Hotel and Residences. So we're an independent, family-owned hotel on Piccadilly. I've just been there since February full-time, but we've got 180 employees that work in the hotel and residences.
Brilliant. And Trudy.
Hi, I'm Trudy Parr. I am Head of People and Development at Molly's. So Molly's is a motel and diner concept that started in 2019. We've got 2 properties at the moment, one in Bristol and one in Oxfordshire, and the third is opening in Manchester in the Granada Studios next year, so a big city centre property. We have 220 employees currently, and I'm responsible for every part of the employee experience from pre-onboarding to retirement.
Brilliant. Thanks, Trudy. And Michael.
Morning all. General Manager of the Balmalone Hotel in Brockenhurst down in the New Forest. Get lots of vague expressions when I mention the location.
Beautiful.
It is rather lovely.
Beautiful.
Balmalone is a privately owned, family-owned hotel, 4 silver-star hotel. It's been there 27 years and I'm in my 10th year. And just sort of very active locally with the sort of New Forest Hoteliers Association and the same for Southampton. I think as an independent hotelier, it's pretty tough out there, so you've got to work as a team, and I think as independent hoteliers know, I think better together.
Better together. I've heard that before. So one of the things we said when we initially sent out the information is we would talk about the Hoteliers Charter, and that was because Sally Beck was the person who instigated that. She put it together when her daughter was coming to work at the Royal Lancaster Hotel for her work experience and was bringing her friend along for work experience. I can't think of a better place to work in hospitality than the Royal Lancaster, other than obviously Athenaeum, Molly's and Balmalone. But her daughter's friend's mother said to her, why would you do that? Why would you want to work serving people? There's much better careers out there. Who wants to work as somebody's slave? And I think Sally was so incensed that she put together the Hoteliers Charter to try and change that perception of what hospitality is. But I know, Andy, you've adopted the Hoteliers Charter both in your previous role and more recently at the Athenaeum.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think when you told me about Sally's daughter, I had the same experience as a daughter of my mother when I told her that when I was 15 that I wanted a career in hospitality, and she said to me, no, you need to go and get a proper job. And she passed away a number of years ago, but she'd be really proud of the kind of career that I've carved out. So I kind of share Sally's passion for changing the perception and making people realise that hospitality is a profession. So both at the Athenaeum and at the Grand in Brighton and Richmond Hill, where I worked previously, we were early adopters of the Hospitality Charter so that we can work together to change that perception of hospitality and make it a career for people, a profession.
Yes, so do take a look on UK Hospitality have taken over the running of the Hospitality Charter, Hoteliers Charter. So please do take a look if you haven't already signed up to it. It is a great thing to do. And on that point of perception, Trudy, that's your mission at the moment. I remember I got quite a long email from you a few months back with but it absolutely flowed over with passion. So will you talk a little bit about your project perception?
Yeah.
That's not right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Right. I think just goes hand in hand, and I think it's great that people care about work, the whole leading on and how the future is going to be. I think it's mind-blowing to me. But so it's a lot, so I will try and keep it succinct because I know that I've ranted to you lots as well. So I look after the people and development side, and I know that a lot of you will experience problems with hiring, recruitment. We've had lots of problems in terms of flow of people, and there's an awful lot of vacancies still in our country, across Great Britain. So I was, all I could hear was, we're having trouble recruiting, we're having trouble recruiting, we're having trouble recruiting. And, clearly we've been affected by Brexit, we've been affected by, on the back of COVID, lots of perceptions changed as well about people working in hospitality, and I know that you'll all probably have experienced that greatly. And I was just hitting a brick wall with what can we do? Why are we all not doing our bit? And I think everybody is to a certain degree, but it feels like we shouldn't just put up with the fact that we're struggling to get people. What can we do? And I am a stat geek, so I do go and research quite a lot of things, but this was super passionate for me because I could look at the industry and we're contributing 130 billion to the economy, and we're struggling to have the funnel that feeds us to get people into the industry. That makes no sense to me. You know, we've got this whole industry that really works and we're very good at it and people like to come through our doors, and for some reason it's not being fed by lots of different things. So I started to look at several things. So obviously we've got media influences, we've got amazing dramas that have shouty chefs and all those kind of things that put off people that are coming into their front rooms and actually going, oh, okay, this is how we're all being programmed of what the hospitality industry is. But also looking at the influences that I've spoken to, you know, Andy's doing great things, you know, the hotel charter. We're doing great things. How we're looking after our people is much more different than we used to. And so coming into the experiences of people in hospitality isn't for some reason being shared externally. So all the good bits people aren't necessarily seeing. So there is going to be perceptions of people not wanting their children to come through the mix. And when we started to really research it, 10% of adults would convince their child to go to hospitality. So that's tiny little part of who would be willing to send it. And why would that be? And where has that influences come from? So we started to have a look at the education system because adults, both teachers and parents, are the main influences on your career choice. They're the most influential people in a person's life. So it's your parents and your teachers are feeding that through. So it's kind of how do we get that message? And do people in schools, you know, thinking about your own schooling, do people in schools actually know what it's like to be in hospitality and what the good bits are of hospitality and the quick career progression opportunities and the experiences? I've travelled the world, like I've in lovely 5-star hotels and had an amazing time, you know, and I know that's not everybody's experiences, but it was an experience that people can have. And so it's kind of why are we keeping all these good stories and not telling people the good bits? Why is that not getting through? So we started to look at the education system and so lobbied a beta group of teachers, educators, career advisors. And what we found was, the majority of people, the teachers, this group of people that were tested we do believe we have a very strong influence on a child's career choice. We all believe that. That's where we're right. We do think we have an influence. Also, they believe the curriculum is not suited for a career in hospitality. So nothing in the curriculum, apart from home economics, which generally gets dropped at year 9 because it's not put into a career focused curriculum. But also, there's 22% of children that have now fallen out of the education system. So there's an increase in people being homeschooled because the education system doesn't necessarily fit for all the children, and that's increasing year on year. So there's a bit of a mismatch of opportunity that we found, and then we looked at further and went into the degree educated level of hospitality. And when you look at that, so you look at our most popular subjects: law, economics, business, nursing, computer science. On average, this year, between 40,000 and 80,000 people were enrolled in an undergraduate course on those subjects. Hospitality, 7,500 people joined hospitality. That in undergraduate. Huge difference, huge difference. So we're not feeding it through that's where we should be going. So there's a whole lot of information. We've got a thriving industry, potentially more thriving with more people joining it, but we're not feeding we're not feeding those through from school. We're not feeding them through from influential, with really good stories that would actually some children and adults obviously would thrive at. And we found that the majority of people fell into a career in hospitality in this country, and I'm sure there's going to be some nodding around the room, rather than if you moved more in with our European colleagues, there's more management qualifications, and that undergraduate level would be a lot higher. So it's where we value hospitality, and that comes from clearly a perception piece. And like you said, we don't tell the good stories. We are not telling the good stories. We are not telling, I've got people in my team, and I'm sure you'll all have these people, success stories that join us as a receptionist and now are our sustainability coordinator. Who even knew that was a thing, 10 years ago. So the crazy paving of paths in hospitality needs to be told. You can earn more as a GM than you can a criminal barrister. That's not told. We don't tell these people things. We only tell people how hard things are and how tough. And every industry has these things, but they have a different way of going about it. So we started to go into schools at year 7, 8 and 9 and working with career advisors, bringing people that are relatable to those students. So yeah, there's a lot of young people that come with me that have got thriving careers, but people can connect on a level that I may not connect, even though I still feel 20. That way. So telling stories of progression, telling stories of acceptance, individuality, all of the things that, where their values can align, also, so we also get involved in curriculum, and we're beta testing this at the moment to make sure that we can see the actual responses, but all of our work experience days are filled within half a day, all of our master classes are filled. We work with a lot of SEND and NEET students. There's a bigger proportion of NEET students, and that's not in education, employment or training at the time when they're 18. So there's a lot of children that haven't, young adults I should say, that don't have necessarily the direction, support, understanding of where they need to go. And actually, if hospitality was spoken about more freely in our school system, or we were embraced more openly in terms of the education piece, then we would have an awful lot more children that would be thriving from day one, knowing that their careers are meaningful and that they've got a wonderful journey ahead of them. So we're doing this. We're getting involved with Chef of the Year competitions, but also GMs in business studies classes. My daughter's 21 and she studied business. And she didn't understand. She's very clever, very bright, but she didn't understand how the P&L would fit into a business. Well, if a GM goes into a business studies class and talks about how they've got a problem with their P&L, how can you help us solve it, and they can really engage and go, oh, actually, that could fit into my future. That I could do that. That's how I can see it, rather than it just be a P&L. And have no relatability to life. So there's lots of different ways, and actually what we found is schools are really embracing us. They're really embracing us because they want this content. They want to be able to feed different ideas. Careers advisors, there's more and more careers advisors that aren't employed by the school, but they're employed by the county, so they will cover several academies. And we've just had pure joy going. I mean, like in terms of my brain, when you go into a school and you have this real feedback and reality and actually reinvigoration, it's benefited our business as much as it has them by just doing that. But we've also seen an increase in feeds in apprenticeships and like I said, masterclass work experiences, internships. So we're right at the start of the journey. There's an awful lot more. We also need to do a bit of lobbying with government in order to change the education system a little bit. But there are surface level cracks that we're starting to infiltrate. And it's really exciting. It just feels like we can start to, I'm not saying it's going to solve all the problems, but it's about making sure that we can start to get the message of hospitality into schools. Yeah, and it's been really good so far, the journey.
Yes, I told you she was passionate. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, yeah, very good. Well done, Judy. Really brilliant. I'm sure we'll come back on those points of the neurodiversity, which Nicola was also mentioning. Yeah. We'll definitely come back to that. But I do want to bring in Paul Michael there at the end, who hasn't said anything. We were talking about...
I'm dreading lunch at 1,000 feet.
Trudy was there talking about lobbying government, and I don't think we're at that stage yet of being there, but I know that UK Hospitality have been really involved, and there was this parliamentary inquiry into recruitment and retention within hospitality, which sadly was the all-party parliamentary group, went on hold when the election was announced. And do you know more about that? I think you...
I've got some notes, which I'll probably pull up in just a second, but I just wanted to say, I think it's really inspiring, listen to what you just said. And I think it's really exciting that we're in a position where I've been in industry 26 years this year, and we've come from a place where I was actively discouraged at the kitchen table to join hospitality. And, you know, we are, I suppose, fixated on what isn't done or how it isn't working or what can we do better. But I think we do have to press the pause and just go, look at what we've done. This is sensational. This is so open field. This is so cool, and it's so engaging, it's so diverse, and at grassroots we've all done something, and I'm sure we've all taken part in something, and we should continue to press that message forward because it is working, and it is sitting in the parents' heads, whether it's at the colleges and you have open evenings that are, you know, encouraged to bring parents to, you know, work experience and all those kinds of things. It's amazing. So I just think keep going, and we'll continue to get there. And we should press the pause button and have a little look at where we've come from, because so much has been done. Yeah, look. So there's a 6-point sort of plan that covers retention, recruitment, perception of the sector, domestic recruitment, staff well-being, and zero-hour contracts. And I think we could be here for probably 2 or 3 hours pulling all of these apart. And I think fundamentally we have a recruitment issue. And interesting, they've put that as number 2, but then retention is probably the most important thing. Which one is it? Which one? Everything?
Retention.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, you know, it's looking at why does the industry have a retention problem, and, you know, what are we doing about it? So, you know, a couple of notes I've made here. COVID has obviously compounded the issue. It does look unsustainable. It does look risky. Has an image problem, excessive hours, underworking. But again, you know, yes, we've heard that. It's what are we doing now and in the future to combat that? You know, there's a lot of things that we've looked at in terms of, you know, we've got a business skills advisor with our local council, and that's an incredible opportunity that's been put in place by the local council to use up unspent levy. And, you know, we've put more people through in the last 12 months in sales and marketing, business development. We've done project management, and this is cool. You know, this really does showcase our industry as being incredibly diverse. You know, one business alone, I've only got to look at my career, and I'm sure yours is exactly the same. Many resonates with all of you, from golf courses to creche to water sports academies to bars, restaurants. This is bonkers. You've got so many disciplines and sectors kind of contained within a hotel or hospitality business. And I think it's really about bringing those together. And I hear you talking about the GM salaries, and you know, you level with a parent and they're blown away. Yeah. They are blown away. I've got most of my team on 4-day weeks, the whole of the kitchen on 4-day weeks. I'm sure we're going to cover this in time. But it's quite quickly how overwhelmingly different a parent's opinion can be of their own child and their own success and their own kind of career trajectory. It's great. Obviously, we look at recruitment. I've put here, wow, goodness me, time to reset. You know, we've had COVID, compounded, a handbrake turn, lots of good work done. Yes, tons of good work done. Perception of the sector. Let's roll forward a little bit. Domestic recruitment. This is an interesting one. It's something that I've kind of been really struck by, is how underprepared the UK was for both Brexit and obviously then COVID. When we came out of a COVID land and we entered this new normal, I was really disappointed at the government's open-mindedness to review the immigration policy. It wasn't fit for a post-COVID world, fundamentally broken at every level. And we weren't prepared. We didn't have enough resources. We didn't have enough action through this funnel to get students in. Perception issues, again, we have this layered approach to just massive issue in hospitality, and we have had to pull the handbrake up and get in, roll our sleeves up and figure out what it's going to take. And I think we've come a long way. I think we've actually come about 10 years in the space of about 2, which you could argue is a really, really great thing for hospitality. And we're all up, championing it, and look how far we've come. But then we've got to sort of staff well-being and zero-hour contracts. And so much has been done towards staff well-being. We've done a couple of mental health awareness days, and we've had training courses for our leaders and managers, and the difference is transformational. Even just culture and outlook, that it's, your head can get a bit poorly too, like the rest of you, and how to recognise that, how to safeguard someone, how to steer them and signpost them through to support, and getting better. And then obviously the last part is their zeroing of these they're lobbying on these zero-hour contracts, which I know we had a little bit of a chat about pre-stage. I really am interested in this 100-day plan and what it does for hospitality. I think there's a lot there that if you're a good operator, no problems, it's all good. But there's a lot there that I look at and think, gosh, this industry's got a long way to go still, because this is going to catch some operators out. And I'm not going to name anybody. But there are hoteliers and there are groups that have got to catch up, that have got to get their head down and get on with being a better employer, being a better business, both for their employee and for their community. And might be a bit cryptic there, but exploitative was the word, wasn't it? Exploitative zero-hour contracts. And there are businesses out there still that have got to cross the dark into the light to figure out how to put their employee first and the benefits of that through their business model. I think we've talked about other sectors, Sports Direct, I know, shouldn't really name a brand, sorry everyone. There's a few places that have kind of 0 hours again has this negative connotation, but there's benefits for both here. And I think it's about how that framework is built and about how UK hospitality work with the sector and work with us to actually figure out what it is. There's unfair dismissal from day one, there's statutory maternity pay from day one. And again, all of these things I think actually stand to hold hospitality in high regard. And I think we're a really slick, forward-thinking operator in the main. And I think it will be only good for the future of our industry, again, in terms of things like credibility and feeding in through that funnel and parents looking in at their prospects for their kids. So that's kind of the main sort of 6 pillars, if you like, that they're going to be negotiating and working with to kind of fuel legislation change.
Brilliant. Thank you. Great summary there. So much to pick up on. I don't really know where to start, actually.
Can I just
yeah,
pick
please.
up on, I think Trudy's my new best friend now. I'd not really met her before, but everything that she said there, I was like, I want to jump in, I want to jump in, I want to jump in. I've been at the Athenaeum since February, but previously I worked at the Grand in Brighton and Richmond Hill, and all the work that Trudy's doing now, I can evidence from my time there that by the time we'd finished for 7 years working in schools and education with teachers, we ended up with between 13 and 15% of our workforce, which was over 300 staff that came from direct contact with a teacher, a school, or a local careers education provider. So it definitely works, and if you're looking to resolve that recruitment challenge, that is definitely one way. But sometimes it's really tricky to think, where do I start? So if I can give you 2 tips. If you've heard of Hospitality Connect and the work that Adrian Ellis, who's a good friend of Sally Beck that put together the Hoteliers Charter, they're doing some great work in the education field. So they've started their project in Manchester and they're rolling it out now across the rest of the UK. And it's a really easy framework for somebody that doesn't know where to start to get involved in. So they match you with a school and they support you through meaningful encounters and some of the work that Trudy talked about and that I've done in terms of affecting curriculum, influencing teachers, getting in front of parents and being able to really push that engagement and share those success stories. So Hospitality Connect is definitely a starting point for you, or work with your local careers hub directly. So have had the privilege of being involved in one of the pilots, which was Teacher Encounters, where teachers who've never perhaps even been in industry because they've been teachers their whole life and don't actually, and my mum was a teacher, the one who told me not to work in hospitality. She was actually even worse. She was a careers advisor in a school, in a college as well. But anyway, she definitely started that passion. It was all her fault. Yeah, sorry. So it was really, really insightful. So I had, and I was a bit stretched in terms of how I would make this work. I had a science teacher, I had an English language teacher, and I had a business studies teacher, and they came in and spent a day with me looking at the qualities and even some of the language. So we talk in an interview, say, give me an example when you worked part as a team. In school, they don't use the word team. So it was really insightful for us to start to think about the language that we use in school when we're educating people for the future. And the teacher said, wow, I never even thought about that. He said, I'm going to start using the word teams now so instead of saying get into groups or get into project groups, he now says get into teams. So we're starting to educate people. The science teacher spent the day with our group property director looking at what we were doing for sustainability, Legionnaires, or how the plant and boiler rooms worked. She was blown away. And then the English language teacher spent a day with the marketing director, and all of their learnings were taken back and added into the curriculum. So get involved with your local careers hub, which has Teacher Encounters projects alive, or reach out and be part of the Hospitality Connect programme. And they both give you a framework. It is scary. I remember back in kind of 2016 when I started the same journey as Trudy, you don't know where to start. You're kind of like, going on school websites, trying to like get in touch with people. But they're really great resources to be able to kind of fuel your kind of passion into that area.
I was going to say, the open-mindedness, I think, from the sort of the boots on the ground in terms of colleges and schools is amazing.
Yeah.
And some of the things you said there, and I think we'll probably all see it in our own business. It's not, how great we are, but it's about how great this industry is, because we are breaking down these walls and we're connecting the dots, I think, from looking back at our childhood and our time in industry 15, 20, 25 years ago, and how it can be championed as something very special and unique and more long-term. That's the thing. And I was going to say, we've got universities have done open days, again, T-levels, readiness and preparedness for the world of work, because the amount of students that come through sort of 16 to 19 in the first week or month and then realise a full-time job of 5 days a week is actually something in the realms of about 40 hours. So between their work life and their college life, they wouldn't ever dream of doing 40 hours. They really wouldn't have a clue. And it's about going in, breaking down those barriers. And again, we've done things like interview preparation. And I think it's really key in taking my middle management through, giving themselves an opportunity to go to those sort of 15, 16, 17-year-old kids at college and actually take them through an interview, take them through a day at work and paint the pictures about what it's going to be like. And I think that's phenomenal, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really important to get in much earlier in education though. At the moment, Adrian's doing great work. I've spoken to him quite a lot about as helping each other out, but it's kind of like, it's that before people choose options, everyone's programmed in school life to pass exams now. Everybody's passed, that you and your maths, English, science are your main focus, but it's understanding how our roles fit into those subjects as well, so that you get more buy-in, but also the ancillary subjects that go along with that there's a huge dropout for, that actually some students will stay in school for, if they understood that making lemon curd in home economics actually does have a purpose, rather than just making lemon curd, because that's the connection. Young people don't necessarily connect that to their life and how that comes in handy at some point. So it's about bringing the world of work a little bit more whilst having fun in those subjects, because it's a lot.
We've got a great initiative that we're working with the school that I'm working with at the moment. So we're working with their year 8 and 9 food and nutrition, it's called now, not home economics like our day. Food and nutrition. I get corrected every time I speak to the teacher. So we're bringing them to the Athenaeum, where we're famous for afternoon tea, and they're going to experience what afternoon tea looks like, taste the afternoon tea, and then their project is to go back into their lesson and to create an afternoon tea menu that they're going to then work with our team to produce for their teachers, to raise money for charity, so teaching that kind of entrepreneurial as well as being in the world of work, then working with some chefs, and as you say, just understanding that what you're doing in that class at year 8 can lead to a career in the future.
Also, like, the relatability. A lot of people do not go into a hotel, restaurant, etc. when you are 14, 15. I mean, very fortunate if you had those lovely experiences. But actually, hospitality, and I'm not saying, McDonald's is people's experience in hospitality, and don't get me wrong, they nail it. They absolutely nail it, and in terms of training, etc. However, that's the only viewpoint. So it's opening the doors and going, there's all of this massive experiences that you can have as well. And I think having different points of people from cafes, bars, restaurants, hotels into the education system, it blows people's minds.
I knew I wasn't going to have a very hard job today. I did, absolutely knew.
Everyone can do something, Jen. Everyone can.
Everyone can do something.
Do something little and keep that.
Yeah.
I'll come to you, Bridget. I know you've got a question. We'll aim to go for questions at midday, but I really want Andy to tell her story about how you've made it really flexible for people to come and work with you.
So one of the challenges that we've all got is that historically it's 40-hour contracts in our industry, isn't it? But actually, the future of work is around flexibility. We've heard about the 4-day weeks, whether that's feasible or not. In our businesses, we can kind of have an whole other conversation about that. But one of the things that really struck me is that full-time work doesn't have to be full-time work. And I was approached by a charity in Brighton who look after young adults with learning disabilities. And back at the time, the statistics were that only 6% of young adults or adults with learning disabilities are in paid employment.
It's 5 now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's gone down. It's 4.8 now in 2023, 4.8. So I embraced the world of special educational needs and have spent a lot of time over the last few years carving out careers for everybody. So hospitality is for everybody, and there's a role for everybody within our industry. But sometimes, as if we have an issue with kind of a mainstream school person wanting to have a career in hospitality, the same exists, but to a greater extent in kind of special educational needs. So to make work meaningful for everybody, let's carve the jobs that we do and put them into bite-sized jobs that everybody can do. So I had a chef who was very autistic, but was absolutely fanatical at baking polenta cake. So he came just for two 4-hour shifts every week and made polenta cake. But what that meant was that no one else had to make polenta cake ever, because we had enough polenta cake to sustain afternoon tea. And we did 1,000 afternoon teas a week, but we had enough to sustain that. But then it frees up time for somebody else. I had Bradley that came to work for me who had Down syndrome and wanted to be a waiter. Actually wanted to be a cocktail bartender, but we needed to start small. But he had a real confidence challenge with kind of meeting customers. So the jobs everybody doesn't like to do, Bradley really thrived. So filling salt and peppers, folding napkins, cleaning the condiment jars, a kind of normal, I don't want to use that word, but a waiter without special educational needs or additional needs, they're the boring jobs that no one wants to do. They want to serve customers and get tips, right? But Bradley thrived in that environment. So started 3 hours, 3 days a week, and then at the end of his supported internship with his job coach, took on paid employment for 12 hours, and the extra 3 hours were clearing tables at breakfast. And then when I left Brighton, Bradley had started serving coffee in the morning. So just by finding a role that fitted him, allowed him carving out that role, has massively impacted that. So when I left Brighton, we had 10% of our workforce that came through the partnerships that we had with the colleges, the schools and the charities that we worked with in special educational needs. And I've now joined the Athenaeum, now working with Wesley School, which is Ascend College in somewhere, I'm not from London as you can tell, somewhere on 2 tubes and a train away from the Athenaeum. 2 tubes and a train away from the Athenaeum. I was nearly late because they've got 4 sites and I went to the wrong one. And I met 50 young, passionate students who, one wanted to be a chef, one wanted to be a cocktail bartender, a girl that didn't know what she wanted to do but met me and was blown away by kind of what the hotel looked like and my smile. She just kept coming back to me saying, I love your smile. And she had a brilliant smile. And I said, that's all we need, our reception team. We can teach you how to do the job, the bit of the job that you're able to do. So, yeah, I'm really passionate about that.
You've got
really
some great
passionate
examples.
Yeah.
I've got loads more questions, but I'm actually thinking that perhaps, I know, Bridget, you were desperate to say something.
Well,
so.
actually, I was going to talk about Team Dominica because
Oh, yeah.
my son is a candidate, but he came for 2 weeks, I think, to the Grand. But my son's autistic, my older son, and he was in the original intake with Team Dominica. And we were in this room of 19 young people and their parents. And Rosa Monckton, who's now a Dame in the House of Lords, who'd be a brilliant person to speak at Hospice.
She's amazing.
You need to get her. She said she would get all of our children a job, and there were a lot of eyes rolled, I can assure you, within a year. Yeah. She got about 4 a job within the first year, and my son was always, he's quite mild compared to a lot of the young people. Yeah. And the young man you talk about in his polenta cake, he stood up and said, I want to work in a posh hotel. It's on film. And he did. He works. I don't know if he's still there. My son actually now works at the Harbour Hotel for 24 hours a week. I got him that job, actually. I'm a bit well connected in the Brighton market. But he did do 2 weeks with your doorman, and loved it. But I'm very proud to say that my son is the favourite employee of the food and beverage manager, because he does breakfast. He's there 3 mornings a week. He turns up, he smiles apparently, allegedly, and does the napkins and the thing and the whatever, and speaks to people even, speaks to guests, which is massive. But what is brilliant, he comes back and tells me what's happened at the hotel. At the moment, it's a Lib Dems in, so he's seen a few minor celebrities, as Bridget call them. But it was even nicer that his boss changed his shift, because he doesn't like change. But she said a week ahead now, would he like to come on Wednesday instead of Monday, because we have a Premiership football team coming for lunch. So I think what is so important is these young people, actually he's late 20s now, they have something to offer. He's paid normal money. He worked at the Queen's as well for a few years. We need to maximise the opportunities for these people, because we will benefit in our
Absolutely.
Hotels.
And the business benefits that we saw through that kind of strategy were immense. The brand that your business gets from that work, the development and the attitude shift in your management team in terms of challenging themselves and being able to think about things differently. I had an executive chef that had been with me for like 20 years, and his job was to make people, in his mind, to make people the best that they can ever be, and push them and get them to learn new techniques and new skills. And it took him a long time with Zach to understand that Zach was absolutely thriving by doing the same thing every day. So it really, it changes your management attitude, and actually going back to the kind of the future of work, being able to do that as a manager and to be able to think outside the box and think differently about recruitment and the type of contracts that we offer, and that work doesn't have to be 40 hours. It kind of opened up the field across other kind of sectors and other untapped markets, as well as just the kind of send market.
We've had real positives from our culture as well, like company culture, in terms of we work with Yellow Submarine and Stepping Stone in our locations as well, that support we don't know everything. We don't know. We all need to learn and adjust, and we want to be the best people that we can to be able to support people into work so they can thrive at every level. So we've had, in terms of like staff feedback about people feeling like they can be themselves at work, we've had people coming forward and asking for support and diagnosis in terms of neurodiversity, because they feel that is a safe space. Psychological safety is really, really high. So the positive influence, and in terms of that, they think that our Molly's Cares, it is like at 98%. So people believe that Molly's Cares because of the way everybody's brought into work. So it has massive cultural positive effects in terms of working with people.
Can I just briefly ask about the impact on your guests and your customers?
Yeah.
How has that gone down? All the programs you're talking about is wonderful. How have you seen that change or develop?
I think that we have representation. So in terms of people feeling, everything is about customers and team. So it's not just about customers. It has to be our team feel safe and in their environment, therefore that they can then support our customers better. So if we display and in terms of that's our cultural level, then our customers we've had really good feedback in terms of TripAdvisors, in terms of feedback on team, and how we adapt and adjust to our guests as well because of the learnings. There's so much training as well that goes into it. More training, neurodiversity and ED&I threads heavily all the way through our business. So at every level, people are getting some training. So it advances as you get more to management level. But it just means that everybody can be themselves, and therefore they are able to support and be aware of supporting our guests better because of knowledge and experience.
And I think in an independent hotel, our kind of brand message to our customers is stay individual, and you're staying and you're treated like an individual. So by visibly having kind of people that are individuals in the workplace just reinforces that kind of brand message that we're sending out from a customer point of view. There are guests, I'm not going to lie, there have been guests who have been rude and insensitive and completely inappropriate, and we deal with those because nobody should be treated, everybody should feel that they can belong at work, and nobody should be treated like that. So those opinions that people have verbally shared are not welcome, and we would deal with that if it happened and when it happened.
Piggyback on that and say, in terms of the independent, one of the things we talked about pre-today was, if, like myself, we've only got the one hotel and we don't have the maybe spectrum to create a long and high, illustrious career path. And let's talk about layering up this approach to, I suppose, upskilling and progression and whatever that might look like. And it might be a stage with 2 or 3 hotels, 2 or 3 times a year. Could be about these courses. And, all seeing the benefit of that. And I started nearly 10 years ago. We were spending nearly £16,000-17,000 on adverts and staffing kind of placement fees. And I flipped that in its head, and within 2 years, it went to zero. And what I did do was put £15,000-16,000 a year into training. And then pre-COVID had, I think, something like 98% staff retention in my full-time roles, which was over 60. And at its peak, over 55% of that workforce were on some work-based learning. And that's accredited. That might be ILM, it might be MVQs. And it's radical how different the business reposition was when you have something like that running through your team and opening up these doors and these avenues to recruitment and retention and upskilling, special educational needs. I hear it resonates a lot with me. The chef, we've got a chap very similar. And, it's wonderful what can be achieved. Long term, you can kind of step back and go, it does work. And I think that does underpin your business model in the community. And I think when it's stress tested, like COVID or cost of living, actually you can spread that and share that and delight in the fact that you've achieved something and actually how much that's benefited my business model. as an independent is unbelievably important.
The other great benefit of being an independent hotel, we've got people here from Hilton and Marriott, and I'm sure they have lots
Sure.
of beautiful training programs and
They have
leadership
some of the best.
and all of those things, which we could be the envy of the independent. But the benefit of being an independent is you can do it very specifically and bespoke training. I think.
Adaptable as well.
Yeah, we were talking about this yesterday, weren't we? So we spend a lot of time talking to our staff about the guest experience should be bespoke and creating that kind of individual experience for people, and that's why you choose an independent hotel over a brand, and have worked in both. But then you can't then do kind of, once it's all employee experience and development and learning should all be bespoke. So it's really hard. I've worked previously where you can have a leadership program and you can have 12, 15 people on it. I don't have 12 or 15 managers, so I can't run a leadership program every year because there'd be nobody on it, because we want to keep people and don't want to be kind of churning them over. So for us, development needs to be bespoke, and we've created a professional development fund. So I've allocated a proportion of my L&D budget specifically for people's development. So I've last week signed off somebody who wanted to do a tiling course. So we didn't say, you need to do the tiling course. He wanted to do the tiling course. Is there a business benefit to that? Yeah, so when the tiles fall off in the kitchen, we don't need to get a contractor in. He's the contractor. I've got our payroll technician. She does a really good job, but she wanted to kind of upskill. So we've just signed her for a payroll technician course. So, and we use that fund. And again, that creates that sense of belonging for people. So we're not saying these are the programs that we have and you must do them. It's like, tell us what we can do to better you.
Yeah, the loyalty from that is probably enormous.
Yeah, what's important to them, but also has a business need, right?
Do we have more questions? I've still got lots left, but I imagine... Oh, Andrew.
Obviously, your hotels sound lovely, but give me experience. I stayed over last night in a hotel in what is a trusted brand. It wasn't a franchise, it wasn't IHG, it was operating companies, it was hotels operated by a company. Okay. So I walked in and I work in technology, so I tried to use the self-service check-in details, but they didn't work for them. And the reception was carnage. And there was 5 or 6 members of staff working there, but it was carnage. The restaurant was closed for an emergency, which basically means they couldn't get a chef. And then 3 of the lifts were out of order, probably to save electricity. The point is, well, first of all, it should be in business still, but that projects such an image. As a parent or anybody staying in that hotel, you'd say, well, you don't want to be working for that company or working in hospitality, do you? And I wonder why companies operating their businesses like that. I think it's, they don't deserve to still be in business, but they obviously are.
That's a great question, isn't it? That's a great question. I think, this is...
And the trusted brand, they're not
I think it could have been my hotel, quite frankly. I've been there. I've absolutely been there. I think as well, you might have just been that guest where it all happens to that guest.
Yeah.
Sorry, but it might be. But no. In all seriousness, this just shows you how diverse our business is. There's no AI in any of that. Sorry, there isn't. This is real world, this is people-led, it's experience-led, and you've got a couple of things breaking down there. And and the problem is, it's about, gosh, that's a really tough one, isn't it? Because every hotel is different.
That isn't unusual.
Yeah.
And I mean, from my point of view, so the lifts have they had 6 lifts, it wasn't an issue. They could put a sign up saying, we are not using these lifts to save energy and make a positive message, positive spin. But they didn't chose to put that out of order. But I mean, that's not an unusual experience.
No, it's interesting. But it could have been a fuse. It could have been a fuse. It could have been a fuse. I think it's about customer tolerance.
You could say that about any industry, though.
There's my brain.
Yeah, I am. New best friend. But you could say that about any industry. So when I was looking for a new job, somebody sent me a link to say Southern Water are looking for a head of people. I've never worked outside of hospitality, and the job looked amazing. But I don't want to work for Southern Water because in the south they've got a very reputation. So you could say that about any industry.
Did you feed back when you were there?
There wasn't any, no, because I feel sorry for the staff. I genuinely felt sorry for the staff when I checked in the hotel. So I'd go out, feel working in hospitality, I'd go out my way not to be able to
I don't think you need to be horrible.
It's not their fault. It's not
No.
their fault. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. There was 5 or 6 bodies in reception. The people, the 5 or 6 people. So it wasn't a resourcing issue.
Yeah.
But obviously, and the rooms were immaculate, and it was good condition the hotel. But obviously, the experience is, I say, you don't work for that business, that company.
It's difficult. It's easy to judge, I'll be honest with you, and I think that's something that we've been predisposed with as a human race, that we sort of look on it and go, why would you want to work like that, or why would you want to do that? And it is days are hard work, they're stressful.
Hotel chain, you think, why are they so willing to operate like that?
Difficult one to answer on their behalf, I have to say. Really
I would hope
difficult.
that's not,
The norm.
the norm.
Yeah.
I've been in terms of, I have been a hotel geek my entire career and stayed in lots of hotels, and I would say that on one hand I'd probably count bad experiences. But there is a staff shortage. Let's get them through the education system and out the other side. It's about feeding back while we're there, because they can't make the change if they don't know what your experience is when you came through the door. But yeah, you're right. Go into supermarkets. Sometimes that's carnage. Watching people operate, you can suddenly sit there and go, I would do that completely differently if I was doing that. Or when you're in queues for things, yeah, I'm sorry you had that experience, but come to Molly's.
I mean, it is interesting how we seem to be always searching for technical solutions. Like we've got full self-service checking kiosks. God knows how much they must have cost.
Yeah.
But why not just put on, a supervisor to look after reception,
There's a lot that could be said for
understanding your flow as well, isn't it?
Integrating IT and AI and the flow, definitely, because it's important in business. You can see the benefits of it hugely. We've actually done about 25% reduction in my front of house team and reduced my operating hours by 4.5 hours a day because of innovation and because of AI and because of technology and the fact that it just presents itself and you go, well, that could, and you might spend a couple of £1,000 over the course of the year, but nothing like we'd have done with an additional member of staff in there. And the gains are huge. The experience is radically different for the user. Profitability's up, and I think that that's really an issue for an independent for most businesses.
When it works.
Is how you can offset those costs through your business, because at the moment, if you don't do anything, it's just going to come out of your profitability. So you have to work practicable solutions into your business to be able to maintain and improve user experience, maintain and improve profitability. Tough trade-off, isn't it?
At that point, though, we have more or less reached the end of our time, and I'm just looking through my notes to see what we didn't touch. And there's one mental health first aid training. I'd never heard that phrase. Well, 5 years ago, it just didn't exist, did it? And I did want to give a shout out for Hospitality Action because they are really good and they have a great EAP program. Yeah. Which is really well. And I saw a presentation from them last week where they said in 2018 they did a survey of hospitality workers, and 50% had concerns or had experienced mental health issues, and that had grown to 75% in 2024. So it's definitely something that we really need to have our ears and eyes open for. Yeah. And I think really just to summarise, we all know hospitality is a fantastic opportunity, fantastic industry to work in. So I think it's upon all of us to try and spread that word and to let people know that there is great career progression. And it's a true meritocracy, isn't it? Anybody that's working hard at their job will get promoted. It's not like studying to be a doctor. It's something that you can progress through very, very quickly without years and years of study. I do want to just say we've had some brilliant events just recently. We had one on Monday, which I know a few of you were at as well, not yesterday, a week ago, with Jason Robinson, and that was fantastic, the ex-rugby player, and he was also very inspiring. We've got some coming up in next week, actually, at Duke's Hotel. We've got an event where we'll be talking about sales and marketing with Redefining. We've got some brilliant speakers there. We're doing an event on sustainability and ESG and its total picture of ESG and it's going to be a debate, so lots of people representing different aspects of sustainability and why they think they should stay in the balloon debate, and there'll be 5-minute pitches, and that's at Bankside on the 3rd of October, which is also, we're doing another completely different event, but in Cheltenham, which is about marketing, so anybody that's based sort of Cotswoldy, that you might prefer to go there rather than come into London for the sustainability event. And then, of course, we've got our annual conference, Hospice, on the 14th of November, which I hope you can all make it to. And if you haven't already registered, please do. But I think we need to say a big thank you to BT, the team, and Helen and her team who put it together, and Jen, and also the Hospi team who work behind the scenes getting everybody here. To Nicola, thank you so much for another of your very inspiring speeches. And especially to my 3 wonderful, passionate panellists today. So that's Andy, Trudy, and Michael. And thank you all very much for coming.
Thank you.